Hey guys, Josh from Dad Bods Anonymous here, known as Jarman or Noodles or the original founder of Dad Bods, however you want to call me. Anyways, so here today we're going to be talking about your balls, testicles, balls, whatever you want to call them. Anyways, so first things first, I'm not a doc, and I'm only going to be talking about my experience and what it was like for me when I got the snip. And hopefully it'll help out with others and make others feel better about going through the procedure themselves. I'll be free to take questions during any of this as well, so feel free to just type them into the chat. And if anybody has their own experiences, they're more than welcome to say that they're willing to jump in as well in the chat, and I'll invite them right over. Anyways, so I guess the first thing to start off with is why did we do the vasectomy for me? So, first things first as to why I did mine is my wife has really rough pregnancies. Jamie has really bad pregnancies. She ends up with, God, what do you call it, baby? Hyperemesis. I don't know why I blanked there for a second. She's ended up hospitalized multiple times for it, and with our first son, she was in the hospital for a long time. Then we tried birth control itself. Birth control works, but for her, the hormones that are in it are really, they make her a different person. She just wasn't the person that I had met when we got together, and it wasn't really a good thing for us, so we sat and talked about that for a while. So after we got pregnant with Logan and she gave birth to him, we decided that we would wait for a whole year to make the decision to get the cut. So during that entire year span, we could actually sit and talk about it as often as we want, pros, cons, however we wanted to weigh it. But nobody was actually able to make a decision until exactly 1 year to his birth. I think it was probably about a year and a month. We finally made a full decision on it to go ahead and do it. It's also just blatantly safer for men to get the procedure than women. I mean, when you can go in somewhere for 30 minutes and be in and out like that, it's not really that much of a problem. So first things first, I had to go and talk to my doc and tell him it was something I was interested in. And because as young as I was at the time, they weren't exactly for it, but they were going to let that be up to the urologist's decision. So they sent me a referral out to be able to go and see what they'd say. So anyways, went to the urologist, and the urologist looked me over, was going to tell us outright no, due to the fact that our age alone and the fact that we only had boys. I was even asked if I had my wife's approval to be able to do this, which was a kind of a shocker to me that, no offense, babe, but I needed her approval to be able to get my own manhood snipped up. But yeah, so I explained to him how we had taken a year and taken a lot of time to think about our decision instead of just jumping into anything. So with that, he was like, okay, cool. Well, then let's draw a bunch of dick pics. So that's actually kind of what I've did for everybody that's going to be watching today or in the future. I got a bunch of ball sack pics behind me, and I'm going to kind of walk through what the procedure was like for me. So I had my first visit with the urologist, and he drew some dick pics and showed me exactly what the procedure was going to be like, walked me through it, talked about it, everything. Then he said before they can even do the procedure, I needed a second visit with them just to show that I hadn't changed my mind. I had to wait 1 more month to be able to come in and prove I hadn't changed my mind, and then I could get scheduled. So essentially, I needed 3 visits before I'd actually be able to get my balls chopped. So into the room itself, specifically what happened was they jumped straight to saying, all right, here's your gown, get naked and wear that. Mind you, the room was a nice and cozy 60 degrees. So I was buck naked, everything just hanging out in this little tube top of a gown. Once I did that and I got settled in, they knocked and they asked, oh, can we come in? I said, sure. They came through and the nurse came in and poured about a half gallon of lidocaine on my nuts. And it comes back to dick pics fuller because that's what the doc said. But anyways, So they poured lidocaine all over me, just dabbed it everywhere. They made sure that that was in the freezer prior to pouring it on top of me. Then they taped the shaft down to me because they said specifically, we do not want that getting in the way. I seconded that motion. I was not particular about anything else getting in the way of this procedure. Then the doc came in, and he lidocained a single ball at a time. So he filled up a syringe. He told me to go ahead and turn on my music, that I could listen to an iPod with it because they were not putting me under. I told him that I could be watching literally anything or listening to anything, and it wasn't going to distract me enough. So took one ball and injected it directly. And that was honestly not as bad as I had imagined it was going to be. It was just a little bit of a pinch and a warm feeling. It was kind of like jumping into the shower and having the water set too hot. So that was that. And then he was like, okay, we're going to go ahead and start here in a second. Yes, don't forget to shave first or have your wife help the night before. They will shave for you. Be honest, I trim my giggles and bits generally, so they didn't really have to do much. So after they lidocained one, they said they were going to go ahead and start the procedure and go and talk to me through what they were going to do. So first thing they did, I'm going to go ahead and bring you over so you can see my pictures a little bit better. So we have the taped shaft down. Then they went and pulled one ball off to the side, put a single slice into it. Now after they did the single slice, they pulled the vas deferens out. They pulled that section out and clamped on both sides, cut between and removed the whole center, tied each end into a knot, and then cauterized it. So with having each of my balls done that to individually, they said the likelihood of me being able to reproduce after this, because I have been cauterized shut, tied into a knot, and there is a gap now between the two, that the likelihood of me being able to produce would be very slim to none, and that even getting a reversal would be very difficult to do. So they did the first testicle, and then they went to repeat steps 2. Knowing that I was about to have another needle shoved into my left testicle, I twitched as they injected. So I actually caused a needle stick with me. So they went into my left nut, and they pulled back out when I twitched, and the doc injected his own hand with the rest of the lidocaine. So he then paused, and he looked at me. He's like, well, now I'm going to have to find another doctor, and you're going to have to lay here for a minute. So I had to wait there for a little bit longer while they found another provider who wasn't currently preoccupied with another patient. Then she came in, and she injected me with another round of lidocaine into the same testicle. And then they started that procedure on it. I think one part that I guess I kind of glazed over here is when they pull the vas deferens out of the sac itself, you actually feel a pulling up in your lower abdomen. Kind of about where your intestines would be. You can feel more or less like there's a string running straight down and through. So that would be about here. There's a string is what it felt like being pulled. As well as having that feeling, that was really the only thing that I felt. I was able to smell myself being cauterized, so it kind of smells like a burnt steak. So that was a new experience for me, and I wasn't really expecting that. They sewed me back up, and they told me that I was good to go. My balls were actually so numb that I actually didn't really feel any pain being able to get up, get dressed, and walked out. I actually looked at Jamie and was like, hey, we got shit to do because I'm feeling pretty good. That was my first mistake. Granted, second mistake. First one was probably causing the needle stick. But to be fair, there's a needle going into my nuts. So then we went to the mall, did some wandering around, some shopping. Jamie kept asking me if I was really sure that I wanted to do that, and I told her that I felt just fine. I will recommend to any person out there that goes to get this done, you are not fine. You should immediately be putting ice on it and resting, and absolutely nothing else. No, Dad. I'm not asking them to save any piece. No. Anyways, so got home, put on some compression shorts, and then did some icing and whatnot. That helped, but somebody had recommended to me at one point in time to wear a cup actually while going through or while sleeping, so that way I would ensure that I didn't roll on top of myself and cause any more undue harm or pain. That actually made it worse in my particular case because I ended up rolling over and having the cup crush on top of the testicle between my thigh and the cup. So I was only supposed to be on quarters or time off for 3 days from the procedure. It's a relatively quick time. I ended up being off for 5 days because of the massive amounts of swelling. I know people joke about, oh, the swelling's huge. They were literally each the size of a nice plum, and about that purple. Excuse me. So post-surgery, post my 5 days, post all that jazz, I was pretty numb, or I was not pretty numb. I was in a lot of pain for a while. Just being able to do anything. That and kids hitting me in the balls consistently totally did not help. But it's kind of like things gravitate towards it after you've had a procedure done on it. They told me no sex for a couple of weeks, but upon further research today, several other facilities in the Mayo Clinic actually say that you can do it within 7 days. I would say if you're not the one doing any of the work, that's totally acceptable. Your balls are a lot more sensitive in general. That's to include even being touched, played with, or anything like that. Shit, putting on your own underwear, they're a lot more sensitive than you generally expect. That was pretty much it. After about 5 days, I was pretty good. That pulling feeling that we talked about earlier continued to happen actually for a couple of months afterwards. I know probably about the first month afterwards, I went to go run to get something out of the car real quick, and I got about to the third step before I had to stop from pain from feeling a tugging sensation up in my stomach, intestinal area from it because it was still getting stretched back out from the procedure since it was shorter now. But yeah, that was pretty much it for me. I went in for my follow-ups at the 2 to 3 month mark. I had to go and provide a sample to my coworkers because I worked in a hospital, so that was plenty awkward and a lot of fun. And then I was supposed to do it again another 6 to 8 months later, but seems how the fact that I hadn't gotten my wife pregnant after that point in time, I just failed to do so. I should probably have gone up for that second one just to ensure. I have heard in some cases that there is a possibility of it growing back and that some people go in for regular checkups. That's not something I've done yet, but it's not something that I would see or say that I wouldn't do in the future. I know there's only a couple of people watching right now, but does anybody have any questions about getting your balls snipped? All right. Well, thanks for watching. This has been Dad Bods Anonymous. Have a good one.